for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
Play it on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick Podcast, your #1 sports destination.
Giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K,
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 S-I-C-K.
All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
Play it on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick Podcast, your #1 sports destination.
Giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K,
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 S-I-C-K.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. The Eye Test with Pierre, McGuire, and Jimmy Murphy.
The Stanley Cup winning Colorado Avalanche And after 22 years, Raymond Marsh!
The sickest NHL podcast. Brought to you by TCS Customs and Logistics. Moving pieces, delivering peace of mind. It's gonna be sick.
And welcome to another edition of the Eye Test here in the Sick Podcast Network. He is Pierre McGuire. I am Jimmy Murphy. Pierre, how are you, my friend?
Dealing with the snow like you are, I think. All good. Heading to Stores, Connecticut tomorrow to watch UMass and UConn. I'll be doing that game with our good friend Nathan Strauss. And then staying over to visit with Coach Kavanaugh. It's a 4 p.m. start tomorrow in Store. So I'll visit with Coach Kavanaugh after the game and then heading to Boston to get ready for a little Super Bowl action on Sunday. And then the Beanpot consolation game and championship game on Monday. And working with you at West End Johnny's.
A nice busy weekend of hockey for you. And yes, of course, we will be once again at West End Johnny's, 138 Portland Street in Boston, 3 to 4 p.m. Eastern, live from the bar. Right when you walk in, we're right to your right there. We set up, come on over and say hi, and be sure to enjoy some Sam Adams Cold Snap and some Sun Cruisers. Thanks to them and the Boston Beer Group for getting behind it. Of course, thank you to Johnny Caron. What a great host he was in our first show there, and I'm sure will be going forward, as we will also be there a week later for the Four Nations face-off. Pierre, you mentioned UConn and Stores, Connecticut, and Coach Mike Kavanaugh. We pre-recorded our on-campus Friday for tomorrow with head coach Mike Kavanaugh. So I urge everyone to check that out. It'll be on actually as you and Nathan are doing that game, but you can always check all the different podcast platforms and listen after if you want to watch the game. Pierre, you know, kind of, we don't have a guest today. So just kind of, as we were saying before we came on, go anywhere, free for all Thursday, we'll call it, I guess. And I've been thinking all week, you know, since we came in, I think it was Saturday night or Sunday night when that big NBA trade went down. I've been trying to really identify the equivalent of it in hockey. And I don't know if you'd agree with me, and I want your take on where you were and what you remember about the trades. But the two trades that I think, and one of them is really fresh in my memory because I was about 14 years old. The other one I don't really remember well. First off, way back, the one I don't remember well, it was on November 7th, 1975. The Boston Bruins trade Phil Esposito and Carl Vadnais to the New York Rangers in exchange for Brad Park, Jean Rattel, and Joe Zanussi. Where were you, and what do you remember about that trade and the reception it got throughout the league? Did it stun the league? Or was it just more localized where the fans were stunned? What was the reaction across the league?
As a kid growing up in Montreal, I was going to Lower Canada College. The feedback, and I used to deliver the afternoon paper, the Montreal Star, when they had an afternoon paper in Montreal. They don't have that anymore. But what I remember the most about it was everybody talked about, obviously, the high-end players, especially Rattel, and, you know, how great a player he was in Park. And people always ask the question, who is Joe Zanussi?
Yes.
You know, who is Joe Zanussi? And, you know, he didn't play a lot, but he was a game guy, and he tried his derriere off all the time. So he was a character player. He was an eye test kind of a player.
Yeah. He become a scout, too?
I don't know if he ever scouted or not, Jimmy. I don't know that. I never scouted with him. It doesn't mean he didn't scout, but I never did when I was doing that job. But obviously, with Brad going one way, and we've had Brad on the show, and you know what? We should actually have Phil Esposito on. We really should. He's just an amazingly fun person and very intelligent. Actually, blow you away with his hockey IQ. It's amazing. But I think people look at the principles, and Rattel, Mr. Rattel had to be in there too. The last time I saw Jean Rattel, it's a great story, Jimmy. I had so much respect for him as a kid growing up and watching him, and just what a gentleman he was on, and even on the ice, you know, on the ice, he was a gentleman too. He reminded me a lot of Jean Beliveau, how he carried himself. And there was an all-star game situation in LA, and I was part of a group that was acknowledging the top 100 players of all time in the NHL.
Oh, I remember that.
And so I was standing in the lobby, believe it or not, with Dave Keon Sr., you know.
Yeah.
And we were just talking. We were having a cup of coffee. We were talking in the hotel lobby. And Jean Rattel came over. And, you know, I had known Jean from when he was a scout with the Bruins in particular. He was a really good scout. And I didn't know if he remembered me or not. So I just went over and said, Mr. Rattel, Pierre McGuire. He goes, oh, Pierre, I watch you all the time. I know you. And we had the nicest talk. And can you imagine having the privilege and honor of talking to Dave Keon Sr. and Jean Rattel in a hotel lobby early in the morning, just having a cup of coffee?
That's awesome.
One of those, Jimmy, where I say sometimes you just sit back and listen.
Yes.
That was one of those. It was amazing. It was so cool. So you asked me about that trade. I was a kid. I was 14 years old in Montreal when that trade happened. I was delivering the afternoon paper, and I just remember the big principles. But I also remember everybody saying, "Who's Joe Zanussi?" And we didn't have internet then. Like, it wasn't that easy to just go and find out.
Yep. Yeah. And I remember who do we have on that told the story about when it was Bork was telling us about when Espo got the news. Remember? And they had to go out, and he says, well, I'm jumping out that window if you say I'm traded or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. No, but I obviously a huge trade for both teams. Boston never won the cup with Brad Park there. And New York never won the cup with Phil, but they got to the final in 79 against Montreal. And people forget that. There were two Eastern teams that played in the Stanley Cup final. And that was Lafleur. Lafleur was at his prime. He was just so good in that final. And you go watch it. You go watch the tape back. I know it looks slower, and obviously it was, but Guy Lafleur was at another level. He really they had nobody in the league at that time that was Guy Lafleur. Nobody.
I know Boston fans, Pierre, always wonder what could have been if Bobby Orr had been healthy when they got Brad Park. And if they had both those guys, I mean, they would have won another.
You're right, Jimmy. I'm glad you said that, and good for the Boston fans. You know who would have your back on that? Scotty Bowman. Scotty would. He always would say to me, about having, if you had Brad and Bobby on the same defense, what it would be like. Almost impossible to forecheck. Just break them up. One on one tandem, one on the other. You couldn't forecheck the Bruins. It'd be impossible, especially in a small building. It'd be impossible.
Yeah, for sure. Impossible. And then you look at those teams, though. Yeah, and then. Brad, I always thought too, Pierre, speaking of Brad Park, and I think Scotty has said this as well, he would have got way more Norris trophies, if he was kind of, I don't think he minded, it's not a bad thing, but he was living sort of under the shadow of Bobby Orr. It's tough going head to head with Bobby Orr, right?
One of the best stories, absolutely it would have been. Yeah. One of the best stories ever is Harry Howell won the last Norris trophy before he said, I'm glad I won it this year because there's a guy in Boston that's going to win it the next date. And he was pretty right. He was pretty right. And Bobby, I got to tell you, Harry Howell, he's passed away. He was always dressed to the nines. Jimmy, he would be dressed impeccably. It was unbelievable. You go out scouting, you'd always have a shirt and tie on. You'd always have a nice coat on. I know he was really good friends with Glenn Sather, and Glenn's still amongst us, obviously. But Harry Howell was, I got a chance to see all those guys like Red Sullivan and Doug Robinson and all these amazing scouts. When I was breaking in, I had a chance to work with all these guys. Yeah. And it was amazing to just hear. That's when you'd get in the room after everybody would congregate in somebody's room. And you'd go there and, you'd have a beer, you'd have a glass of scotch or whatever, and you'd listen to these stories from these men that had played in the original six, that had traveled on the trains, that had these titanic battles with all these other guys, and that some of them would be sitting in the same room, and they'd be kind of like squirrely-eyed looking at one another like, I used to fight you. And the information you could learn if you just listen would be overwhelming.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like life lessons that I carry in my back pocket to this day, and I'm so grateful for those times. I remember going across the prairies once with Doug Robinson and Jack Bowman, the late Jack Bowman, and just listening to them talk. I was the driver. The young guys always had to drive.
Chauffeur, huh?
You rent a car and you drive. Or I remember driving up the Coquihalla Pass with the late Charlie Hodge. He picked me up at the airport in Vancouver, and Charlie and I would drive up, and we'd go stay at the Dome Motor Inn in Kamloops, and we'd work out of there. We'd go into Merritt. We'd go into Kamloops. There was no team in Kelowna back then. We'd go watch Penticton play in Tier 2 junior. And he'd tell me all these great stories about Toe Blake, or he'd tell me stories about Jacques Plante. He'd tell me stories about Eddie Johnston. You know, they all were around Montreal Junior Canadiens, or even with the Montreal Canadiens. Obviously, Eddie was with Boston. I hear all these amazing stories about all these people.
Yeah,
It was like a master class in what hockey was. It was really good. It was really good.
Lucky enough, that train ride you and I had from Dublin to Belfast when we were over there for Friendship Pierre. That was, you told me some amazing stories on that ride. I'll always remember that. It was a great, interesting ride, fun ride, and obviously the scenery couldn't be beat. But it was something else.
I will always remember that train ride, Jimmy. I had so much fun with you, and guess what? We get to do it again next year, or this year actually. But we get to do it again later on in 2025. I can't wait. All our good friends there in Belfast, and our friends at the Harry Lemon in Dublin, and we can't wait to see you all. The Heart in Belfast, can't wait to see them. And Jimmy, what I remember about that train ride was looking out over the Irish Sea. Going along and just thinking about, I wonder if, like, I ever in my wildest dreams would have thought that I'd be going to Belfast to cover a hockey tournament.
I know, right?
I never thought.
Of all the things you've done, think about it, all the places you've been.
I never would have thought of that.
So, Pierre, the other trade, you mentioned Glenn Sather, and he was a member of one of the teams involved in the other trade that I compared to that big one in the NBA recently. Of course, that would be Wayne Gretzky. I think this is the all-time of all sports, in my opinion. Wayne Gretzky, Marty McSorley, Mike Krushelinski head to the Kings. The Kings then sent back to the Oilers Marty Gelinar, Jimmy Carson, $15 million in cash, and the Kings' first-round draft picks in 1989, 1991, and 93.
Yep.
Here, I remember that one because I was almost 14 then and really becoming a big fan of the game and loving the game. And I was walking, it was on August 9th, 1988, as I said. I'm walking down the stairways outside from my grandmother's house, and my grandma comes rushing out, and she goes, "Hey, James, Gretzky was traded. And I just, what? So you go in, and we didn't have social media then, and news didn't travel as fast. But, once it sunk in, I was like, oh my gosh. And that became the thing, Pierre, where not just in hockey, I think you hear reporters or fans say in any sport, hey, if Wayne Gretzky can be traded, anyone can be traded. So your thoughts on where you were for that trade and what you remember most about it?
I know exactly where I was when that trade went down. I was at the War Memorial in Syracuse, New York. I was watching the New York State games. I was working for St. Lawrence University as an assistant coach. My birthday was the day before, August 8th, and I drove down from Canton, New York to go watch this tournament of all the top players in New York State at the time, because we were in New York State school and we wanted to try to always get one kid from there. We were pretty heavy with Ontario and Quebec and Saskatchewan, but we always wanted to try to have one young player per year from New York State. So I was there, and all of a sudden I hear people saying, "No way, Gretzky didn't get traded. No way." So I walked out to the car in between periods. Jimmy, you've seen me, and I don't like to run with the herd. I like to be, when I'm scouting, I like to be by myself. I just like to watch.
Yeah.
Like, I don't go get rosters. I just put the numbers in my head, and at the end of the day, I'll go look and do the research. So I walk out to the car, and I turn the radio on, and I listen. They said, "Breaking news, Wayne Gretzky's been traded by the Edmonton Oilers to the Los Angeles." Now, I'd heard this in the rink, but I was like, come on, there's no way they wouldn't know this.
Yeah.
And I walked out to the car, and I listened to it, and I was like, oh, my gosh. So the interesting part of this story is I keep going. There's a player that I really like there. His name is Matt Dixon. I really like him, and I'm watching him. I think he's really good, and we eventually get him.
Right.
Which was really good. I was happy we did. And I drive back that night to Canton, which is about 2.5 hours, maybe 2 hours. It's the summertime. There's not a lot of traffic, and there's no snow through Watertown. And I go to the local watering hole in Canton called the St. Lawrence Inn at the time, and I go to the bar, and they got it all over the TVs. It's August. Like, what the heck?
Yeah.
What I remember the most is saying, I wonder why Edmonton would do that.
Right.
And originally, it wasn't really heavily reported. The $15 million mattered.
Big time.
But you didn't.
Glad you brought that up.
Yeah, but you didn't hear that a lot.
No, I had no idea. And I was kind of young to understand all that, what was going on.
But
yeah,
the 15 million mattered. It mattered a lot. And what's interesting is, and it's Mess didn't say it, none of the Edmonton Oilers guys said it, but a lot of hockey pundits when I was around. Mm-hmm. I started in Pittsburgh in 1990. The Edmonton Oilers won the Cup in 1990.
Yep.
And people, you know, people can be a little bit lightly sarcastic. They say Messier won one cup without Gretzky, but Messier won two because he won in Edmonton in 90 and New York in 94. And people would say, yeah, but Gretz never won them without Mess. Take it for what it's worth. I'm not buying that, but I'm just telling you what people were saying.
Yeah, exactly.
So what I remember is I go to the Boston Garden for the deciding game. We didn't know it'd be the deciding game of Boston versus Edmonton, right. But I go to the game, I watch it, drive back to Canton. The next day, 2 days later, there's a big press release from Pittsburgh, and my phone rings right after the press conference, and I got hired by the Penguins like that day.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Wow. So this was a monumental time for you.
Yeah, like you're asking me, you know, I remember. So I started when Gretz got traded, go back to Canton, you know, coach that year.
Yep. Then
eventually move on. But what I remember now, which I didn't really think of then, was the $15 million. Back then, Jimmy, like, you know what the payrolls for most teams was back then? Seriously, I'm not kidding around with you. Most teams were between $8 and $11 million total team payroll.
Imagine that today. Wow.
That's one player.
One player, two players.
So, you know, I'm just telling you, that's about what the team. You can Google it up if you want. And for those that don't believe me, that's about what the team payrolls were. You had a couple teams that were a little further, like 12 to 14 million. But most of the teams were between $8 and $11 million. That was their team payroll.
Wow. And that was huge too. And then I don't remember the whole details, but the owner was in some trouble too, right?
Mr. Pocklington, Peter Pocklington.
Yeah,
he was a very successful entrepreneur, and he dabbled in a lot of different things. A lot of it had to do with the agricultural business.
Okay,
but I think there was a downturn, and again, that's not my level of expertise, but I think there was a downturn, and I think that affected him. A little bit, and then obviously the Canadian dollar wasn't particularly kind of what they're going through now. That's not being reported, by the way. And Jimmy can tell everybody. I sent him a column from the Ottawa Sun late last night about what's going on with the Lansdowne project. And over 10 years, Jimmy, how many nickels have they made in 10 years? Zero. They have never made a nickel.
It's not good. It's not good. And, you know, we'll get into that a little bit more. I just want to point out there, Pierre, Gabriel Lamb, one of our regulars here in the comments section, says he lives in Watertown, New York.
Love it.
Yeah.
So he knows about
I hope Pierre's not spying on me. He says, I hope Pierre's not spying on me.
But Gabriel knows about the snow.
Yeah.
And Gabriel knows I'd come through there and I'd go through Gouverneur, I'd go through Fort Drum, all those different places by Watertown. He knows exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And it's beautiful there. You go by Alex Bay in the summer, which is near the Thousand Islands, and he knows, again, Gabriel knows this. It's beautiful, Jimmy. It's amazing how beautiful it is. But I've been through some harsh stuff there in the winter, man. Let's put it this way, from probably just a little north of Syracuse to Watertown, when it's wintertime and it's bad.
That's why you're so good at it. Pierre calls me. He'll be driving through a whiteout blizzard, and it's like no big deal. So what do you think of this game tonight? Are you driving through a blizzard, Pierre? Do you really want to talk about this right now? Don't worry about it. I do it all the time. So, unreal. Pierre, switching gears into the comment section there. I was going to bring this up, and I'm glad Bert Al brought it up. We'll go to this question right now. It's applicable to what I want to talk about. Pull it up, Jane. Bert Al talked about Connor Bedard. There you go. Pierre, I don't know if you're aware of it, but last night, Paul Bissonnette made some comments criticizing Connor Bedard. He's starting to hear it a bit from critics across the league and some fans. Just, this part of growing up and being in the NHL, and you're not going to get praised. But they asked him about it today, and I don't have the sound bites, but I was reading it when I was researching for the show today. He was pretty snippy. He came back, and I always correct me if I'm wrong, Pierre, it's fine when people say, well, I don't really care what they say. That means they care. Like when they go out of their way to say that, and he repeatedly said that. So you can tell it's getting under his skin a little. If you're the coaching staff there, or you're, say, Nick Foligno, a veteran, on the squad, is this not the time to maybe just pull him aside, let him vent, let him get it off his chest, talk to him about it, and this is how you deal with it going forward?
Yeah, I wish they had more experience in the front office. The general manager doesn't have any experience. He's never had to deal with this. So, and that's not a knock on him. That's just the reality, It's the reality of it. If you had somebody like Craig Patrick in there, if you had somebody like Ray Shero in there, if you had somebody there like Donnie Waddell, if you had somebody in there like Jimmy Rutherford that had actually real on-the-ground experience, it changed this a little bit in terms of how the player would deal with it. That's why I told you this many moons ago. One of the things I really wanted to do in Ottawa was to bring in a proven veteran leader to help Brady Tkachuk, to help Tim Stützle, to help Josh Norris, to help Shane Pinto, to help Jake Sanderson and Tyler Clevin, young guys that were really going to matter to that team. And I never had the chance to implement that because Mr. Melnick passed away. And when he passed away, I was no longer there. But I think it's really important. And I always harken back to this. And for the people that have been with us right from day one, Jimmy and I are so grateful. I learned my lesson about this a long time ago. Brian Trottier was the perfect tonic for our team in Pittsburgh. 2 Stanley Cups and a President's Trophy. And I can tell you right now, none of that, even though we probably would have won at least 1 cup if Brian hadn't have been there, but the ability to win 2 back-to-back, to win a President's Trophy the next year, and this is really important, to win 11 straight games in 92 to win the cup, which no team had done before and no team's done since. Yep. I don't think any of that happens without Brian. And that's when I learned my lesson about that.
Yep. So I'm with you on that. And, as Brett Favre is saying over in the comment section, Brian Burke would take that heat off him in a New York minute.
And so we agree on that. So I don't know what was said. I don't. And I listen, Jimmy. You know how much I watch hockey.
Yeah,
I watch a lot. I don't watch in between periods because if I'm going to watch in between periods, I'm going to watch stuff that I'm going to actually learn from.
Yeah.
I like to think I watch as many or more games than anybody else. So I'm not really needing the in-between period stuff. I'm probably last night was a weird night because you had Edmonton and Chicago, you had Montreal and LA, and the early game you had New York and Boston. So you it was all spread out. You didn't.
Well, I think the thing right now, Pierre, basically the common theme, and it's been going for a bit now, is that they're saying, look, when it comes down to it, so far Celebrini has proven to be a better number 1 pick than Connor Bedard. And, and then also a lot of people, as we said too, and we've suggested that he might be better at the wing, but a lot of people out there in the media, or whether it's fans, they're not saying it as nicely as we have said it, where we're just simply talking hockey. We're not saying it to knock the kid. We're just looking at different options they have in their lineup and where he might fit in better. So, there's some rough stuff being said, but that's part
what did Paul Bissonnette say? I'm just curious.
He was saying that, the Celebrini's been much better when it comes down to who's lived up to the hype more.
Well, he's been better than anybody's Lane Hudson. Did they bring up Lane Hudson?
No.
He was a second-round pick.
Yeah.
So this is what I'm talking about. So this is and I'm not picking a fight with anybody. Like, I respect everybody that works. Anybody's got to stand in front of a camera and have a microphone in their mouth. I'm going to respect them because I know what goes into that. And you always get second guess. That's fine. I respect that. But I'm entitled to my opinion too. And my opinion is a lot of these guys working on TV don't watch enough games.
No.
Okay? Just telling you. And they're really good at dealing with the information that the researchers give them. Okay? I never had to do that.
Little snippets.
I never had to do that. I didn't have to have somebody cutting my videotape for me. I cut my own videotape. We would build every single repay pack during every single game that I was a part of. It was called Inside the Glass while the game was going on. You ask anybody that worked in any production truck I was ever around. That's how we did it. So I don't need to listen to those guys. I respect their opinions, but I don't need to listen to it.
Yeah.
That being said, if you're going to have this conversation about which rookie is better, you better have freaking Lane Hudson's name in there.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm in there. I'm with you on that, Pierre, for sure. And how about Dustin Wolf? I know he's a goalie, but
his name should be in there too. Well, good for you, Jimmy, 100%.
Yep.
And I agree with that. So look, not trying to pick a fight, but I'm going to stand up for Connor Bedard on this too. And, you know, we're going to eventually get Chris Pronger on this show. We are.
Mm-hmm.
And he'll tell you, it's hard to be a star player, especially an offensive star player,
when you're that young.
Mediocre to bad team.
Yep.
Because everybody loads up on you. They
Exactly.
don't worry about the other guys. They load up on you.
Yeah.
And Pronger can speak to it as a player that had to be the matchup guy and also the guy that everybody went after on our team.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, that's a hard thing to do. And
well, I remember you did it. You coached against him. It was your game plan that made it successful in '92, you know, against the Bruins with Bork. And there's no knock on the other defensemen on that Boston Bruins blue line in 91, 92. But he was the guy. And if you could shut him down, you shut down the Boston Bruins. That's just how it went.
If people ever saw the hits that were put on Raymond in those series.
What he said to us when he came on, he goes, I think you shortened my career by about 2 years.
Yeah. If Bobby Airy, Phil Bork, Troy Loney, Kevin Stevens, Rick Tocchet, Mark Recchi, it was equal up, Brian Trottier. We had, I'm not going to tell you everything we talked about in our meetings because that's not appropriate, but we had very intense meetings.
77 circled right there.
Yeah, that was good. That was the physical part of it. The verbal part of it was a little different.
Well, there's always that great Kevin Stevens.
You know, and Raymond knows how much I respect him. We all did. There wasn't a guy in our room starting with 66 that didn't respect Raymond.
Of course, that's why you focus the game plan on him.
Yeah, but look, people can go take shots at him if you want to. I think it's really hard to be Connor Bedard.
Yeah.
I do. I think it's hard to be Macklin Celebrini. I think it's really hard to be Lane Hudson.
Yeah.
Like, that's what bugged me the most, Jimmy. And I'm glad we're having this freelance day, and I hope our fans aren't getting
we should do this
ticked off. But it's just talking. We're three. It's Jimmy and I and the rest of you in a bar talking hockey. Okay, that's what we're doing.
Love it.
And so the one thing I just say is, I got really mad when people started going after Michael Matheson in Montreal.
Oh.
I think it's so inappropriate. They have no idea. Like, that guy does so much. Just listen to what his teammates say. And I get you get mad. That's the beautiful part about hockey. People have passion. I love that part of it. I do. But be fair. That's all. You don't have to be sucking up to the guy, but be fair.
Nope. Yeah.
Like that. The one play, Patrick Laine butchered that pass.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
That was like 2 weeks. That Saturday night game. Yeah.
Yeah. And against New Jersey. And he got ripped apart because Jack Hughes went down and scored on a breakaway, partial break. What was Matheson going to do?
I know. Nobody was stopping that. I mean,
What was he going to do?
Dry. He left him out to dry. One more event here, and then you know what? We'll switch over the Q&A because I think this conversation is generating a lot of ideas over there. I see some good questions. But another thing, Pierre, I sent it to you today, and you know, this is something I'm so glad. I mean, not that I didn't know it, but anyone can make mistakes sometimes as a journalist. But one thing that you're adamant about in always talking to me or any other media is to make sure when we say something, like just as we're doing right now, to present it as opinion. Like you just did. These are your opinions. These are my opinions. We're not reporting anything per se. We're giving you our opinion. So, you know, sometimes we'll get questions here in the Q&A, Pierre, right? Where, you know, I know you don't like talking about players, but sometimes you'll say, you know what, maybe this guy could be a fit on that team, or maybe he couldn't, you know, but we make it very clear that this is our opinion and we're just looking at potential fits. We're not saying these two teams are talking about this player. So I sent you that story, Pierre, and you saw it, that link, and it was from one. I'm not even going to give the
no,
site.
don't. That's how to do it, Jimmy.
But
good.
Anyhow, it drove me nuts because the way I found out about it, right? And you know, God bless my friend Brendan, who I'm doing some Bruins podcast work with a little here now, and he knows his stuff. He knows hockey, but you know, he works a full-time job. I'm guessing he's just seeing little things pop up on social with headlines, and unfortunately, in the era of social media, people see headlines, they don't click on a story, and they go with the headline as the factual news. So they put it up that the Bruins and the Colorado Avalanche.
Yeah, don't say names. Don't say names.
I won't. They're being linked talking about a certain player. And then you click on the story, and nowhere does it say a source has confirmed this, or nowhere is anyone from Boston quoted as saying this is true, or anyone from Colorado. it was simply another reporter doing exactly what we've been doing for the last 20 minutes here, just suggesting things like, hey, I think this guy would be a good fit with the Bruins. You know, it might be something they want to look into. He never said once, I've got so-and-so telling me this, and I'm hearing it's really close. And they just put that headline out there, and all of a sudden my phone's lighting up. I'm getting texts from my good friend Brendan saying, well, I guess the Avalanche are going to trade this guy. And what are you talking about? Did you read this? No. And there you go. So for everyone out there, sorry to get this vent off my chest, but if you're interested in a story, if it grabs your attention, click on it and read it, because you may send it to the wrong person. I mean, chances are you're not talking to like the GMs or anything, but you know, and then all of a sudden it spreads like wildfire. And it's not, nobody in that story said that this trade was going to happen. It was just whoever wrote the headlines did appear, and it drove me nuts. Sorry.
Well, what should really drive you nuts is something that actually happened that we talked about on this show, and a lot of media pundits were saying this would never happen, and that was Marcus Pettersson going to Vancouver and signing a 6-year deal for $33 million last night. And I remember when the deal happened, and I remember what we said. He's going to sign immediately, and he's only played 2 games there. And you read the quote from Patrick Alvin, who was part of the management team that traded for him when he came over from Anaheim, and you're like, okay.
Yeah,
as soon as that went down, I told Jimmy, there's no question he's staying in Vancouver. And Jimmy, you know.
Don't shortchange yourself either, Pierre, because when we came into the season, I remember, I'll have to go back and find the episode, but we're kind of already looking at trade stuff and who's free agents and will this team sign this player. And I remember you mentioning, surprise if Marcus Pettersson ends up back with Patrick Alvin in Rutherford in Vancouver. And that was back in the beginning of the season. Now here we are in February, and it's happened. And by the way, that's a good solid deal for the player and the team.
Oh
I
my
think
gosh, that's how deals should be. So he's 20. Yeah, he's gonna, when the contract's over, he's 34 years old. He's still got plenty of game left, but he's not going to be a broken down jalopy. Like it's no. And so that's a good deal. And is that out of whack? No, probably not. Now, the one thing I'm going to say, and please, if you're a member of the NHL hierarchy, Jimmy and I are not trying to pick a fight with you. We're not. We are not. Nope. I want to see how the cap is going to go up as much as they're saying.
Yes.
I'm not saying it can't happen, but I want to see how you got to that.
Yep.
What intel or what financial information do you have? And don't tell me because we're thinking it's going to come from streaming. There are no guarantees on streaming. No. They don't have any guarantee on that.
You have no idea. You know, it was Brian Burke. Credit to Brian Burke. He was great yesterday when he came on with us. Thanks again to Berkey for joining us. He said, Pierre, he agreed completely with us. And then he said, unless, like you're saying right now, Pierre, unless they have some kind of TV deal maybe in place already and they know what they're going to get, how can you sit here and say that? You're just prognosticating. There's no, to our knowledge, to everything we see. And Pierre, I'm telling you guys, Pierre keeps an eye on this stuff religiously, because obviously you were in the business, you're interested in it, and you care about the game. Mm-hmm. And there's been nothing. Pierre sends me info and articles and blurbs on the TV side of the business or in the broadcasting side. And to this day, all season, we have seen nothing that could suggest this is going to happen. And then when you look at what's going on with the Canadian dollar and now what might happen with this trade, well, again, we're not getting into politics, but just the uncertainty of the financial climate in North America does not resemble what they're projecting for the cap.
I just don't know how a responsible TV network that's not TNT or not ESPN right now, so we'll just say Disney and TNT, I don't know how people could actually, from outside of those two groups, could actually look at the numbers and say, okay, this works. We're gonna go X times 2, or we're gonna go X times 1. There's no way. I don't know how you could do that to your shareholders. So I don't know how that works. But maybe they have another plan. Maybe part of that is, $2 billion a team for 2 expansion teams. Maybe it's 4 expansion teams at $1.75 billion. I don't know. They might have a plan. I'm sure they do. These are really smart people. They know that. They know how much I respect them.
We're just going based on what we're presenting.
I'm just going based on what we see.
Yep.
My question is, it's just a simple question. It's not a statement. It's a question. How do you come up with the financial intel that says we can go from $84 million on the cap to 116 million.
In 3 years.
I would like to know. I'd just like to know.
Mm-hmm.
How are you going to do that?
Yep. It's going to be interesting. I mean, I hope they can do it because I want the game to succeed.
It'd be fantastic if they could do it. It's great for the players, and if the owners can afford it, that's great too.
Yeah.
But I said to Jimmy as soon as I heard about this, and I want to give credit where credit's due. My partner's a gentleman. He had a chance to break that story, and he didn't because he promised somebody he would not. And I'm just telling you, like, I respect that so much, and that's why we still have a show together, because he knows if you start doing that stuff, it's a quick way of getting out of the business fast.
Yep.
And you handled yourself really well there. I'm really proud of you.
And that person appreciated it, let me know, and that felt good. So, all right, let's. You were talking about just sitting around talking hockey in bars. We're going to be doing plenty of that, Pierre. In the as we said, we're going to be at West End Johnny's with our good friend Johnny Caron on Monday, 3 to 4 p.m. Sam Adams Cold Snap and Sun Cruises. Drink them down. I can't drink those Sam Adams Cold Snaps.
Oh, I had one the other day with Johnny.
Were they good? Were they good?
Really, you know what? I want to text Doc Emmerich. So Doc used to push me all the time. Pierre, you got to have a Sam Adams with me after a game in Boston.
I remember you telling me that.
Doc likes the Sam Adams. He really does. Yep. Not a lot. He has like 1.5, and that's enough.
Yep.
Then he moves on. But I just remember he used to tell me all the time, I'll have a Sam Adams. Pierre, have one with me. So, no, I'll have another. Now I'm drinking the Sam Adams. Johnny poured me one, and it was really good.
And you had this new one, the Cold Snap, eh?
Yeah, it was.
Because it's amazing. The lager has been around forever, Pierre. It's like
I know that's what Doc used to drink.
People still love it. It's great. Of course. So yeah, we're really excited about that. And then the next day, Pierre and I will be driving up to Montreal. We will do our show. It's like quasi remotely, but like we do here via StreamYard and YouTube. We won't be together. We'll probably be in our hotel rooms, or Pierre will be wherever he's staying in Montreal.
I'm staying at my mom's.
Oh, you are staying with the Mrs.
Yeah, I need somebody to watch my curfew when I'm in Montreal, so I'm staying at my mom's.
Me too. I'll be a good boy, though. I'll be a good boy. So Tuesday we'll be doing it from the hotel, and he'll be at his mom's. And then Wednesday, Thursday, and Saturday, so every game day, we're going to be 6 to 7 p.m. Eastern, live from McLean's Public House, 1420 Peel Street. It's not the old McLean's. Make sure that you don't go there, even though that is a great place. It's not a bad place to accidentally walk into. You just might not leave because you'll have such a great time.
Yeah.
But we will be at McLean's Public House. It's relatively new. I think 2023 it opened, and it's beautiful. Pierre, it's got a really good, authentic Irish feel to it. Now it's not going to compare to the places we were in Ireland, but it does have that good, authentic feel. You're going to enjoy it. And by the way, too, for anyone that does live in the Montreal area, I highly suggest going there on Saturday afternoons because they do a brunch up until 2:00, and they have Irish sessions going all day. It's great. So they've got really good live Irish music. So that's McLean's Public House. We'll be there every game day, 6 to 7 p.m. And then we will trek back to Boston for the last 2 game days of the Four Nations face-off, and we will be back at West End Johnny's, 138 Portland Street. So looking forward to that. All right, let's talk about our sponsors. TCS Customs and Logistics. Unlock the full potential of your shipping operation with TCS Customs and Logistics. From around the corner to around the world, flatbeds to air freight, customs clearance to drawback consulting, TCS is a one-stop shop for all things transport, moving pieces and delivering a peace of mind. For no obligation customs or freight quote, contact sickpodcast at shiptcs.com. Again, that is sickpodcast at shiptcs.com. And then, of course, Betway. Always loving Betway because you can lose, which unfortunately in my betting days I did a lot of. So that's why I don't bet anymore. But you can go over there right now, go all the way with Betway and get a free bet up to $200, even if your first bet loses. Scan that QR code right in front of you, or go to the details section to create a new account and redeem the welcome offer. It is only available for new customers. Also, it is not available in Ontario. Terms and conditions apply. You must be 18 plus. You must bet responsibly. Let's pull up the sick pick of the night.
It's time for Sick Picks. Brought to you by Betway.
All right, I tanked on that parlay last night, so no parlay tonight. I'm going to keep it short and simple. There's one game I love, and that's because of a certain defenseman that has to be in the North maybe even the Hart Trophy conversation, and that is Zach Werenski, who goes back into the lineup for the Columbus Blue Jackets. They are underdogs at home to Utah Hockey Club at plus 136 value. Give me the home dogs to win. I like the Columbus Blue Jackets, and that's my sick pick of the night. That's a big addition back to the lineup for the Blue Jackets, Pierre, and good for him. He gets his legs going again as he heads up to Montreal for the Four Nations.
Agreed.
Yeah, and he should be in that conversation right now. He has been something else for the Blue Jackets. All right, let's get to that Q&A. What do we got? Alex Ivanowski, do you think part of the reason the Rangers partied so early with parted would be the word, with Hedl and Kakko for older players is because they believe they can just attract free agents and players at any time based on New York City? Pierre?
Yes and no. Part of, Alex, it's a great point that you're raising, but what's changed the dynamic there, the no-tax states of Texas, Nevada, the state of Washington, the state of Tennessee, and 2 teams in Florida. So where it used to be really important for players to be able to go to New York City, that's changed. And a lot of people back in the day would say, well, they're going to make more money away from the ice than they will on the ice because of endorsement deals. That's not so true anymore, especially, like I said, with big properties in Texas, big properties in Nevada. Seattle's a very powerful city, especially for endorsements. So things have changed significantly in the hockey business. I think the reason why they did that, what they did, is because they know their window's closing and they want to win now. I think they realize they're in a very precarious position in New York. Very precarious.
Exactly. All right, next question. Alex Ivanowski, what do you think of Elmer Soderblom coming back with the Wings? He's played so well. I know the Wings were high on him. What do you think his ceiling is? Can he be more than a bottom 6?
Yes. Big, physical, skillful. The answer is yes. I think major upside for him. Some guys take a little longer than others, especially bigger guys. Sometimes, they're not like, look at Adam Enstrom. He's not playing for the Rangers. When he was playing, he was making an impact.
Oh, yeah.
Rempe had a breakaway last night. He didn't score on it, but his skating's improved significantly, Matt. It really has. So those bigger guys take a little longer. They just do.
Yep. All right. Next question. Alex Ivanowski, Matthew Schaefer is by far the best player in this draft. What current or ex-NHL player do you think he compares to?
Well, I'm going to say there's a little Pronger in him. Now, he's not as big, and I don't know if he's as mean as Christopher, but there's a little bit of Pronger in him. I watched him make the one icing clear in the game that he got, actually the game before he got hurt, and was really impressed by him. He's I wouldn't, Alex, to be fair, I wouldn't say he's by far the best player. Like Higgins is going to be a good player. Just watching him play on Monday night. Yeah. He's going to be really good as well. I don't know if he's going to be Celebrini. I don't think he will be. I don't even think he's going to be Connor Bedard, but there's major upside. That kid's a good player. He's a good player.
I agree. All right, next question. Vincent Noel, what's up, Vin? Brian Trotier's book was great. Question for Pierre. You and Brian both love country music. How often would he break out the guitar on the plane?
So we didn't just so everybody knows, we didn't fly in charters.
Yeah.
So there was no real guitar playing going on.
In Eastern Airlines.
So, Jimmy, I got to tell this story. So we're flying to Minnesota in 91 to play in Game 3 of the Stanley Cup Final. We lost Game 1 and won Game 2. And we get to the airport, not the new Pittsburgh airport, the old Pittsburgh airport. We get to the airport and we're flying to Minnesota on a U.S. Air flight. U.S. Air doesn't even exist anymore. It's merged with American Airlines. So we get on the plane and Scotty and Bob Johnson look at me and they go, "Where's Mario sitting?" I said, "I don't know." So they go back and check. So I go and check and I walk back and I'm embarrassed. I'm like, he's sitting in a middle seat. And they're like, "No, he's not." And I won't say who, but there was a member of our traveling party sitting in first class. That person got bumped to the back. Mario came up front. And not one person raised a voice or said anything.
That is awesome. That guy was the Bob Uecker. I must be in the front row.
Brian and I spent a lot of time together at the rink. His family stayed on Long Island when he came to Pittsburgh. So Brian and I spent a lot of time together at the rink. He just loved being at the rink, and we talk a lot about a lot of different things, including country music. And I never saw him break out the guitar on a plane because we didn't charter. We were always commercial.
I'll tell you this quick story. It just reminded me of it. And it's funny. People appreciate it. We're talking big NHL trades. Well, the practice that the Boston Bruins, it was Joe Thornton's last practice as a Boston Bruin right before they took off from New Jersey. You remember they played there that night and he was gone. So I was waiting for him just for another story. No idea what was about to go down. And so the PR guy says, okay, they let the rest of the media leave. And he goes, Joe and some of the guys are still in it. You can go in, just talk. I go in there and it's Joe Thornton. He's the singer. And then one of the trainers had a guitar going. I forget which one it was. And then Brian Ralston's on the drums. And they're playing, and Ralston could really play the drums, Pierre.
Wow.
He was a really good drummer. And they're cranking out Pearl Jam songs. And I'm just sitting there taking this all in. It was great. And I don't think they knew, for about 5 minutes, I don't even think they noticed me because they were so into it. But it was great. And so that just reminded me of it. And then, I did my interview and then Joe Thornton got traded. That's my last Bruins report covering Joe Thornton. That's my last memory of him before he was traded.
What should happen is there should be a revisit of all the opinions that came out after Joe's trade.
Oh, gosh.
Because we
should do another free-for-all Thursday on that.
I'm very proud to say I went on a national show and said, this is outrageous.
Yes.
And I can't believe the Bruins have done this. And I got chastised bad.
I know.
Bad. And then all of a sudden it started to look like, oh, maybe he knew what he was talking about.
He goes and wins the Hart Trophy in his first year. Yeah. All right. And for Brian Ralston's listening, Brian, I hope you're still playing the drums. You were good. All right. Next question. Postnet on 130. Have other teams figured out study? What was the first conversation we had today, Pierre?
Keep going. Read the question.
Spots on the penalty shot. As Pierre mentioned to me this morning, Foegele beat Dobas just over the right goalie pad and under the blocker. The 7-hole, Jared Stoll described it in the LA feed. Pierre, I'll let you take this because this was pretty much the first thing you said to me this morning.
Bright and early, too. I was very proud of you for being up that early.
Yeah, moving my car for the impending snowstorm.
That's what he's saying. That was good. So I was watching and I was breaking stuff down and I was watching again. I was like, okay, they watched him. Somebody internally watched how to beat Jacob Dobas. And all of a sudden I go and read some of the stories after I watched the tape. And Warren Foegele gives credit to one of the assistant coaches for saying, we watched a lot of video because we didn't know the player, but now we've seen his tendencies and we understand what we need to do to beat him.
Mm-hmm.
That's not a good sign.
No, it's not.
That's not a good sign.
Nope. And, interesting. I'll give credit. You'll be talking to him later. I was listening to our good friend Mitch Gallo, who's filling in for Mitch Melnick in Montreal before we came on. And he mentioned the same thing. And I think it was Joey Elias, Pierre, and you can talk to him about this in just about 45 minutes.
Yep.
He said, hey, by the way, Caden Primo has been unreal since he went down to Laval.
Undefeated.
You wonder when they come back from the break, is it Primo or Dobas? That's the backup goalie.
Well, Dobas doesn't need waivers, so that's an easy.
Yeah.
That's an easy.
There you go.
You're going down now.
Yeah,
we'll see.
So it is what it is. All right, next question. WPHL. Utah has a similar color scheme as Winnipeg. Does the NHL intervene at all if two teams' branding coincide with each other? That's a good question.
It's a really they do. Boston and Pittsburgh look a little bit alike. Yep. People forget Pittsburgh changed over to go to those Steeler colors, the black and gold.
They used to be baby blue, right?
Because they used to be baby blue, 100%. And so they switched over. I don't think the league had a problem with that. It's a good question. I get it. There's a little similarity, but it's not that. No, the league's very careful about that.
Yeah.
They really are. They're very, very careful about that. And you know what? They're very professional on it. The league's extremely professional on branding and merchandise. They really are.
Speaking of Utah too, it looks like the Mammoth is one of the names they're still considering, and I saw the logo looks pretty cool. So I'm hoping that becomes their name, the Utah.
They almost did that in Colorado, by the way.
Mammoth? Wow.
They were gonna, that was. I don't know how public that became, but I know that they had talked about it because I talked to somebody internally about that.
Awesome.
All
right,
Jimmy, I'm dating myself. That's a long.
I was in college then, so I'm not that much younger than you, Pierre. Don't worry. All right, next question. Chris L. Question for Pierre and Jimmy. What's up, Chris? Edmonton Oilers have the worst PK of all the playoff possible teams. Great point, Chris. How would Armia and Evans, if he can't be signed, for their bottom six look for Sam O'Reilly? And by the way, Pierre, I think it must have been brought up on the Montreal broadcast, but something like 14 scouts were at that game last night for the Canadiens Kings. I saw it.
Yeah, no, there'd be a lot, but you also, so one thing you got to be careful on, you got to look at the schedule because San Jose and Montreal played the night before.
Yeah.
Where's Anaheim right now? Where's Vegas? You got to look at the schedule because scouts, a lot of times they do their schedule based on how many games they can see in a 10-day period. So they get a lot of volume. And it's not just NHL. So out there, you got Bakersfield, you got San Diego, you got a lot of American League stuff that you can go watch. So it's San Jose as well. So that's just so everybody understands, even though it's the NHL and they got supposed big budgets, scouts evaluate that. So I wouldn't read too much into 14 guys being there. I wouldn't read too much.
Great point, Pierre. And speaking of that, I'll tell Bruins fans because I know that their antennas are going to go up when they see the scouting list on Saturday. But remember, Bruins fans, the Bean Pod is Monday. So if there's a lot of scouts at the Vegas Bruins game on Saturday afternoon, chances are a lot of them are sticking around this weekend. They're going to get some AHL games. So many college hockey teams around here. And then they're sticking around. Thought I would imagine.
So I'll give you an example. Friday night, just in the East Coast, you got a Harvard-Dartmouth game at Dartmouth on Friday night. Saturday, you've got American Hockey League out in Springfield.
Don't forget the game you're doing Friday night, Pierre. UConn,
mine's Friday afternoon, though. It's a
Friday afternoon. Start. That's right.
But you know what you can do? You can go from there to go watch Hartford Wolfpack play Charlotte Checkers. So, like, just people have to understand. And then, to Jimmy's point, you can go right into Boston for the Bean Pod, and you got two games in the same place, and a lot of whether they're drafted players or potential unrestricted free agents on all four of those teams. You got a lot of them. So that's a scout. I know people don't want to talk about it, but for a lot of times when you see all those big numbers, it's because there's a scheduling thing that works and makes it very inexpensive for them to do that. Just if you see like four huge management people from one team at a game, that's different. That's a different thing. That's just different.
All right, next question. Craig Custard. My question is, if the salary cap goes up this much, how can the average guy buy tickets? They can't.
They can. And Brian Burke talked about it yesterday.
Yeah.
Brian was
in Winnipeg right now.
Hey, don't you think Brian was really good yesterday?
I thought he was amazing.
I thought Brian was so good, and I've been getting text messages from all these different parts.
Point. Yep. He was very to the point.
Talking about it. He was really good, and I'm going to tell you something that really bugs me. I hate it when people say you can't equate the price of a ticket to the salaries that the players are getting. Really? Okay. Keep believing that.
Yeah. Why not?
Keep believing.
All right.
So, go buy. If you don't want to believe, okay, so I'll take it your word. Then tell me what the concession prices are.
Exactly. Why is it $22 for a watered-down Bud Light? Tell me that. All right, next question. Ron LaRoque, who's at fault for Montreal not being ready for games? Jake Evans said it again last night.
Well, the one thing I'd say is that was a tough back-to-back, and I told you that before. It's just a different one because you can't fly out of San Jose after the game. You got to bus up to Oakland or San Francisco. And I know people say, what does an hour mean? It means a lot. And if the plane's not working right, there's always some snafu that happens.
Yeah.
But I knew they'd have – look at – LA hadn't played since Saturday. They hadn't played since Saturday, and they had a big win in Carolina that Saturday game, that getaway game for them. So they were going to be ready, and they know they're starting to slip in the standings. They were 3-5-2, I think, in their previous 10, talking about LA. So they knew they needed to get going. And they did. And I don't know if Montreal wasn't ready or not. I know the face-off, the first goal, they weren't ready. Like, I don't know what Slav was doing on that play. I have no idea. Like, get to your point, man. Stop doing other guys' jobs. Do your job.
Yep. I'm with you on that. All right, next question. Paul Cormier. Hey, guys, what do you think of Dylan Cozens in Buffalo? Long-term deal. Is he the real deal?
I like Dylan. I've liked Dylan for a long time.
Trade him other than maybe cap space or who knows, but
I don't know if they maybe think that they're going to get 4 players for him or something, or 4 tangible assets for him. I have no idea, but I wouldn't be in a rush to trade him. By the way, we saw how bad the leaking hurt the New York Rangers. Can people in Buffalo, like management people, I'm not saying the media people, man, stop leaking. Just stop leaking.
You're on that. All right, next question. If you were the Blue Jackets, what would you do at the deadline? They got 2 first-round draft picks for this draft. They're in good shape. Do you sell, buy, or stay the course? I say stay the course. Alex, I say you identify certain depth needs and you add those if you can. I'm with you. You don't use any of your artillery you have, whether it's draft, prospects, whatever. I'm with you. But, I mean, if they've got a chance, and they do, you want to reward these guys. So
yeah, you're going to find out in the next – I know you got a couple weeks off. Then you're going to find out that little stretch there from the end of the Four Nations to the trade deadline. They'll know. One of the assets they have, and I wouldn't be in a rush to trade this kid, Luca Del Belbaluz.
I don't know much about him. Okay.
He was the leading scorer in the American Hockey League before he got called up. He's got a unique handle for sure. But he's a scorer. Like, he can score. So I would just say they'll figure, Donnie Waddell will figure that out. But I wouldn't be in a rush to tinker too much there. I think they're on the right track. And I think Dean Evason's done a really good job there. Yeah. Really good.
I just thinking about this. We're talking about Columbus. You see how well Laval's doing with Pascal Vincent and how he's helping there. A lot of those players in Columbus that are finding success were coached by Pascal Vincent, weren't they?
There's no question they were. Yeah.
They were. Good on him. All right, next question
for him. He's one of the really good guys. I've known him a long time. I really like him a lot.
Me as well. All right, next question. A to Z me. In my opinion, Beck, last 2 games has shown that he's NHL ready. Do you guys think he should stick around, or should he be sent back to Laval for some playoff experience there?
Back to Laval for playoff experience there, and he's a very good player. I think the future is very bright for him, but go get that experience, get a little bit stronger, get a little bit bigger, and come back ready to go next year. But I think they could go on a good run. I do. They're going to have enough depth in goal. They're going to have enough. How was Logan Mayu's goal last night?
Oh, yeah. Thought they shouldn't be bringing him up. I thought, well, that's interesting. By the way, too, all 3 goals from the back. No, it wasn't a good game for the Canadians. So anyhow, Pierre, obviously, we are very excited, as we keep saying, though. We are going to be in person a lot. Back on the road Monday, again at West End Johnny's. Then we head up to Montreal Wednesday, Thursday, Saturday at McLean's Public House. And then we are back at West End Johnny's the following Monday and Thursday to finish off the Four Nations face-off. Looking forward to that. I want to thank Shane for working the boards, and also give a shout-out to our great Sick Podcast crew that's down at Super Bowl right now in New Orleans. I know they're working hard down there. They sent us a great little short video of the setup at media, or what do you call it, press row there. Amazing stuff. So they're working hard there. Credit to them for that. Thank you to you in the questions section and for all your great questions, and to all our listeners and viewers. I want to thank you there. Also, our good friend Ron LaRouque, I want to give a shout out to your nephew. Let him know we're thinking about you.
Hey, Jimmy, who's winning the Super Bowl?
Oh, yeah, because we won't talk on air here until then. I said it. My brain says the Chiefs. My heart wants the Eagles, but I'm thinking the Chiefs. I really do.
I can never, ever cheer for the Eagles.
I know you can't.
So I'm taking the Chiefs.
I like Jalen Hurts. I like Saquon Barkley.
No, it's not that I don't like that.
Yeah.
I'm just a New York Giants fan.
Yeah. I know.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, exactly.
Like if
I could never cheer for the University of Miami winning a national championship.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, I'm a Giants fan. I'm a loyal Giants fan. I don't like where my team is. I'm just mad about it. But I can never cheer for the Eagles. Like, no chance.
I just hope it's a good game, and I hope everybody enjoys their food spread. And has a good time. And and by the way, too, we were talking about it before we got in the air. Shout out to the folks from Newfoundland. They will be at Hurley's Irish Pub in Montreal. If you're in the area, go by there. They'll be singing Irish tunes throughout the game. They go down every year. I've had the pleasure of watching 2 Super Bowls with them. It's a great tradition. As I was telling Pierre and Shane, one year Michael Ryder was there. So it's a fun time. If you're in downtown core on Crescent Street, go to Hurley's this Saturday and Sunday after the Canadiens games. You'll thank me later. So, all right. Tomorrow is head coach Mike Cavanaugh of UConn on an on-campus Friday, right as Pierre does the radio broadcast for UMass at UConn. So you can get it right here. Mike Cavanaugh on campus Friday on the eye test on the Sick Podcast Network. Until then, have a great weekend and enjoy all the hockey.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the eye test with Pierre McGuire and Jimmy Murphy on YouTube, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.